also professional development of our teachers. Through this virtual learning time, our teachers will continue to learn in a planful way as we gather feedback from students and reflect on that feedback and learn how to make our virtual learning experiences even better for our students. We have very talented teachers who have adapted to the current situation in a great many ways. They've grown in this experience and they've expressed an eagerness to share what they have learned with each other. It will be through the voices of our teachers, students, and staff that we will continue to work together to make our virtual learning as impactful, meaningful, and effective as possible. I would also like to encourage our community to visit the MMSD webpage, where there's an abundance of information for families so that they can keep informed with the latest updates. Today, as Gloria said, we have a few MMSD staff who are going to be providing updates, some detail on some of our highlighted subject areas. And then we'll open it up for questions from our reporters. Our first update is on our budget work. And first up is Chief Financial Officer, Kelly. Hang on just a sec, Kel.
Hi, Kelly Ripple, Chief Financial Officer, and I'm honored today to inform you that on Monday, in attachment to our regular board meeting with the Board of Education, we will be releasing our draft preliminary budget for the 2021 school year. As those board materials go public on Friday, you will find that draft budget on our website, on our front page, as well as our comments button. So the release of the budget starts our annual process for public feedback and comments on our draft budget for the 2021 school year. This is an important part of our budget process. It's where we hear from the community, their questions, their comments, and their concerns. And it gives the board a chance to make any adjustments that are necessary and needed to the budget before they vote at the end of June. So please look for that in the release on Monday and on our website on Friday. This budget, as Jane has already mentioned, has been one of our more challenging budgets in the last few years. The board walked into this planning year with an $8 million budget gap to close and some difficult decisions that were needed to be made. In this budget, you will receive reductions in our staffing, both at our school level and our central office. You'll also see significant changes to the healthcare plans that we provide staff. We simply could not afford to continue to pay the high level of percentage increase on our healthcare, which created necessary changes to the healthcare plans. In addition, we had to make a number of other reductions across central office in order to balance this budget. At the same time, as Jane mentioned, we're proud of the budget that we have in front of us and that it puts students first and it put equity first. There are many investments related to the equity vision of this board, including investments in the Early College STEM Academy, just to name one. This budget also includes a planned investment in our step and lane schedule for staff and a base wage increase, which is currently estimated at 1%. So we're proud of the work that we've done this far, and we know that we're going to need to remain flexible with the board, with the public, as we continue to pay attention to the state and the decisions the state might make regarding our revenue for next school year. This budget is built on the biennial budget that the state passed last year. Those are the revenues that the state had promised we would be receiving for next year. If any of those promises are reversed, the budget will need to be revisited between now and October for additional changes. This budget includes a negative 23-cent mill rate decrease and a 1% reduction in expenditures, largely tied to the budget gap created by the Revenue Authority not keeping up with inflation. So these are the challenges that this current board faced in getting this budget passed. But again, we're extremely proud of the work that we did, putting students and equity first and foremost in the decision making. So I hope you have a chance to look at this draft budget as it's released on Friday and discussed it on the board on Monday. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have after you take a look at that budget next week.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, we have up to speak on some of the work that our social workers and others in his department have been doing. I'd like to ask our Executive Director of Staff and Student Support, Jay.
Good afternoon, everyone. As we mentioned last week, our teachers are, of course, our primary connectors to our students and families. They're engaging their students in so many ways and are often the first to know if students or families are in need of some additional support. Whenever our teachers are unable to connect with one of their students or family, or when they become aware of any additional needs, they often will reach out to their support colleagues. The student support team in every school is right there behind our teachers to collaborate in offering any additional layers of support through a culturally responsive approach. While most areas are overlapping and require an integrated team effort, it's also important to highlight and recognize those unique and shared duties and responsibilities. And I'll start with our social workers. Our social workers are working every day to address any barriers that students and families face to ensure that all students have access to resources, support, mental health services, and anything else they need to be successful in virtual learning. This includes working to establish secure access to food or housing, clothing, accessing financial resources to help pay for bills, making connections to a wide array of community resources and our partners, and also helping with acquiring any learning materials. Our counselors are working closely to monitor, especially our seniors' progress towards graduation and helping them finalize their post-secondary plans. Our counselors are also working to collaboratively support the social, emotional, and academic development of our students and helping every student develop their post-secondary plan. During virtual learning, there also are our support for helping navigate questions around credit, around grading, around course schedules, and connections with teachers. Our school psychologists are working collaboratively with teachers and other staff to focus primarily on our students' social, emotional, and mental health needs as we continue into this new and uncertain world of virtual learning and social distancing. They provide strong support and connection to our community providers and needed collaboration when more significant mental health support is needed. And they're also in close collaboration with our special education colleagues and case managers to deliver related services in this virtual context for our students with IEPs. Our nurses and nurse assistants are, of course, our experts for addressing any health concerns through both proactive and reactive actions and supports. They provide critical guidance for our school communities around preventative measures and precautions to take, along with clear guidelines and support for individual students and families when they're facing these health challenges. They're also communicating closely with students and families with significant health conditions, offering support and guidance around their health condition and the impacts of COVID-19, while also assisting with medication and supply pickup as needed. And lastly, our positive behavior coaches, deans, and behavior education assistants are helping develop and share resources to support engagement, relationship building, and community development in our virtual classrooms. They're helping provide resources for our teachers to help them better understand the social emotional learning elements and how those are integrated into virtual learning. And most importantly, they're leveraging the strong relationships to help every single student engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I'd also like to ask our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning and our Chief of Middle Schools, Lisa and Tremaine, to join us to speak a little bit more about professional development. And then we'll move into questions.
Thank you, Jane. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, we're moving into week 3 of virtual learning, and we're maintaining our focus on keeping students at the center. Teachers are connecting with students and families in various ways. Our central office staff is busy creating resources for now until the end of the year, as well as beginning to adjust to new curriculum needs for next year in whatever manner we return and recover to school. While we're working in the virtual learning environment right now, we're gathering feedback from teachers and students and families about how they've been experiencing virtual learning. Our schools and central office now must take the time to reflect and adjust based on what we're hearing to date. We know now that schools are closed until the end of the year and that we'll be doing virtual learning until the end of the semester. It's very likely that we'll continue a virtual learning in some form over the summer and perhaps even into the fall to some degree. It's essential that we strengthen our virtual learning instructional practices and provide professional development to our teachers and staff based on the feedback that we're hearing. We will continue to reassure children and families that we are here and that we will continue to strengthen the human connections between students and teachers. Our students and families need to know that the relationships that they have built with their teachers matter. We will continue to build optimistic messages for families and children about their learning, their hope for the future as learners, and the fact that we are looking forward to returning to them in the fall. So I'm going to turn it over to Tremaine, our Chief of Middle Schools, to talk a little bit more about professional development that we have planned.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I appreciate your partnership. We're very excited about the upcoming professional learning opportunities for continued staff development across our schools from a 4K through 12 mindset. We are very fortunate to have brilliant teachers here in Madison Metropolitan School District that understand not just the technical aspects of virtual learning, but also have an adaptive mindset to make the necessary adjustments to go to a virtual format. With that said, we are excited that these teachers are going to have the opportunity to collaborate with each other within their buildings and across buildings at times to continue to develop their skills in our professional learning days and in the upcoming weeks. We look forward to utilizing the feedback that we've received from our staff, parents, and most importantly, our students, who have provided tremendous insight into which platforms are most beneficial, where they're most engaged, and what's really working from them from both an academically and social emotional aspect that has allowed them to move forward in an effective way during this virtual process. We are proud here at Central Office to partner with the schools during the professional learning steps, and we ensure that there will be collaboration within the buildings as the principals work with their SBLTs and staff to develop a PD that is both efficient but applicable to many of our staff members across the school system. So that collaborative effort will be in play, and just want to really share the excitement of our district to be able to enhance our skills in our virtual learning climate. Thanks, so.
All right, thanks, Tremaine and Lisa. We're going to open it up to questions. We will start with Kelly with the Wisconsin State Journal.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking questions from us. My first question is about Superintendent Belmore's contract. Is the board considering renewing that while you guys are still searching for a new superintendent?
So,
Marie, you want to take that?
yeah, no, I'll take that. We've just opened up our the position, so it is out there right now. We are actively recruiting, and we do hope, depending on the timeline of when we can get somebody on board, we hope that it'll lie. It will be around the time where Superintendent Belmore's contract ends. That's maybe a little optimistic, but we are hoping that is the case. And if not, then we will continue to talk to Dr. Belmore about options. But we are really sort of at a point of now waiting to see what kind of candidates we get. So we will know more probably in July on where we stand.
Okay. And as far as for next fall and what the school year will look like, is the district doesn't know at this point whether it will be online or whether there might students can come back. You guys are still figuring that out. Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. There's still some things that need to be worked out, and we're actually planning for a number of different options and just kind of moving forward, thinking about a number of different things. And then once we get more specific direction and we have timelines that we can work with, we'll be doing that as well.
So you said a number of different options. So is it two options, like one online and one where students can come back, or are there other options where there would be like phased,
Yes,
like certain students?
could be all three of those.
Okay.
And combinations. I mean, we just don't really know what's going to be best yet. But the one thing we do know is that we will always benefit from our professional development around virtual learning, because as moving to a one-to-one district, we need to tap into what virtual learning can bring to us during a regular school year. So what we're learning about how students learn in a virtual environment will stand us in good stead going forward, no matter what the decisions are. And Lisa, I don't know if you want to add anything to that?
You're on mute.
Thanks, Jane. I would just say that, you know, we are considering multiple formats for both summer school and the return to school in the fall. But the one thing that we are focused on the most is that when we return, we want to be sure we are helping students recover moving forward, and that we are working together to adjust instruction to make up for some of the time that has been lost due to the COVID situation that we find ourselves in.
My last question, if I can ask one more, is about employees. Are there any, with the budget you guys are looking at for the next school year, any plans for furloughs or layoffs of employees?
I'm going to turn that over to Kelly and Deirdre.
Yeah, so right now we are not anticipating any furloughs, and as of this point, we don't have large layoffs under consideration. We have a process through our employee handbook that we go through every year that Deirdre can weigh in on a minute, but not due to the budget deficit itself. Like I said earlier, we'll always need to be reevaluating if the state gives us some new news or some surprises later on in the year. But at this point, no, we don't think we'll have to go into any furlough situations.
Yeah, Deirdre Hargrove here. Just to reiterate what Kelly said, it is our intent to continue to move forward, hiring staff and being ready for the next school year. We're always going to be thoughtful about that process and going to continue to weigh our options as we move forward. But as it stands right now, we are moving forward with getting ready for the 21-22 school year.
That's all I had. Thanks so much.
Tim?
Next up, we'll go to Yvonne with the Cap Times. Are you still with us?
Hi. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. My first question was whether there have been any updates to the DPI scope statement about virtual learning for summer, and whether it will be possible to make those hours count for students in grades lower than grade 7.
They're still in discussion, and Kelly, I'm not sure, I haven't checked in with you today. Was there any new discussion today?
My understanding is there will be new discussion over the next couple of days, and we're hopeful that we'll have a decision following that. So I don't think we're far from a decision, but I don't believe anything's been made yet.
Great. And just one other question. I was curious, and maybe this is also for Kelly, beyond challenges to this year's budget immediately, I was curious how the district is preparing for potential longer term hits from the COVID-19 pandemic, especially hits to maybe the next biennium state budget that would result in more permanent budget cuts for both higher ed and MMSD.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. In a lot of ways, our concerns are much more about the 2021 school year and even impacts on the 21-22 school year than this particular school year. And that we were fortunate to the timing of this was such that we've received the majority of our revenues for this year. Where we're going to feel the impacts are next year. You named one of them, which is we don't know what the state will do regarding the planned revenue that we've been planning on since the state passed our budget. Any changes to the revenue limit authority, anything less than the $179 per pupil, any changes to the special education percentage, which is the 30% planned and passed at the state level, will have impacts on our budget next year, and the board will have to continue to make difficult decisions. But in addition to that, what we know that's happening is a lot of our expenditures are deferred right now. So questions around what are the savings? There's very little, there will be some, but not that many savings from this year because a lot of the costs will actually be deferred. You'll see things rescheduled for the fall, right? Rescheduled versus canceled because people don't want to take opportunities away from kids. And the planned items that we were going to purchase, let's say library books. Maybe we're not ordering them right now because we're not fully staffed. But if we needed library books in February, we're going to need library books in the fall. So you're going to see a lot of those purchases happen once people get back into the building and start getting access to the normal systems again. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on the expenditures that we already had planned for 2021 and any of the expenditures that were deferred from 1920.
Great, thank you so much.
Next, we'll go to Talil with News 3.
An update on the attendance and what's that been looking like, and a lot of you mentioned that you've been getting feedback from students and families. What have you learned in terms of what has been working and what isn't working with virtual learning, and kind of what are some takeaways to build on moving forward?
So, Jay.
Yeah, Tulio, I can provide an update on attendance. We continue to use attendance primarily as a tool to make sure that we're in contact with students and families and making sure that we're providing information and connecting them to resources as we discussed last week. We continue to take attendance every Friday, and then our school-based teams follow up Monday morning with reaching out to any students or families that they were not in contact with the previous week to again, make sure we're connecting them to resources. So for last week, the week of April 13th, it was our second week of virtual learning. I'm happy to share that we were in contact with 95.5% of our students, which is up just slightly from our first week where we were at 94.8. And again, that's indication that we were in contact and that our staff were in contact and students were engaged in communicating with our staff. Our overall attendance rate was down just slightly, and this is primarily a result of some of our middle and high school students not necessarily engaging with all of their teachers, but making contact so that we know they're okay, but perhaps not engaging as fully in the second week. And we were down from 92.7 overall attendance in our first week to 87.8 for our overall percentage this second week. We're hoping that we can hold steady at numbers somewhat like what we had for last week moving forward. And I think others are maybe best positioned to touch on your other questions, but I'll just share that what we're hearing from our teachers and what we're hearing from our support staff is that it's just a lot. You know, just the conditions that we're in is a lot to manage. Certainly additional layers of stress, not only on our families, but also on our students. And we're all in the same boat, learning to do something new and different. And it's not the same as, you know, as being all together in a school or in a classroom, but happy to hear about resilience and that everybody's still trying to make the best of it moving forward.
So do any of the chiefs have anything to add about what we're hearing from students?
Hi, thank you for that question. Students are reporting really some solid numbers in as far as the social and emotional aspect and being connected with their teachers, seeing them again and having those solid connections, as well as the opportunity to be with their other staff, with other students, although it's in a virtual setting. From an academic standpoint, there's some variances as can be expected that we're learning from, that some platforms they find more engaging and they're able to engage in lessons at a deeper level. Some virtual settings are where they're actually in front of a camera, as compared to some of the hands-on like paper and pencil things are. We're getting some feedback around which ones are more effective as there. That's why the professional learning and professional development opportunities that we have upcoming are so important, that we are able to amplify those things that are working well. So I think it's really important that we're uplifting, you know, how important that the students are connected at this point, and continuing to uplift the academic components as well based off of the feedback that they're giving us. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit onto that. One of the positives on this is the schools have been able to send out surveys, and we are beginning the process of getting feedback from what's working with students. In particular, some of our more disengaged students that when they were in the comprehensive model that we had 7 weeks ago, and we're seeing some true engagement from some of these students, and we're getting some feedback on how we might be able to adjust some of our instructional strategies. And so there's a silver lining on that. We're hoping to be able to use our professional development in a few weeks to be able to grow on this. And hopefully it will better our ability to connect with all students when we're back inside the four walls of our school building, as well as when we're interacting and engaging with students virtually.
Thanks, Mike. Carletra?
And that would be the same for elementary as well. We have been sending out surveys to get information back from parents specifically around the balance of what is the right amount of work academically that students are engaging in virtually, so that we can make those adjustments. Again, one of the reasons why the Professional Development Day is important for us moving forward. And elementary staff have done a phenomenal job with continuing to build those relationships and doing very creative, out-of-the-box thinking and ways of keeping students and families engaged.
We've had a lot of neighborhood parades going on.
Neighborhood parades, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of Facebook posts.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, I do have another. It's not exactly related to the initial question, but one of the things that I see listed to talk about is musical instrument distribution. Can you tell me kind of what that process has been, what that's meant to look like ideally once that gets going with students?
So is Peter on? Tim?
Peter is on. Peter, there he is.
Oh, great. Hi. He's
That I'm on my way to actually donate blood right now. So I am happy to answer any questions about that. Yeah, students have been reaching out, families have been reaching out to let us know that they are hopeful to get their instruments. Music teachers are itching to be able to continue their instruction. So with the help of the assistant principals and the music teachers, we have come up with a protocol and a process to maintain all safety aspects and maintaining social distancing and being aware of infectious disease safety, to be able to label and organize a pickup process so that parents can come to schools or families can come to schools for those students who aren't able to get to the schools to pick up instruments. We are also organizing delivery, door-to-door delivery. Again, everything maintaining gloves, masks, social distancing to ensure that students will be able to continue with their instrumental music instruction.
Thank you, Peter.
What is the timeline meant to look like for that in terms of getting all the instruments distributed and then kind of starting that musical?
Yeah, actually the first, we were able to outline a protocol, kind of get it cleared by our health services and officials and our school chiefs. And the first high school sort of running as a pilot accomplished that actually this afternoon. And from what I heard, things went very smoothly. I'm going to be checking in with the AP who was in charge of that. The rest of the comprehensive high schools that offer music programming, they'll be doing that actually during the course of the rest of this week, or as late as Monday, possibly. Our hope is to be able to further communicate with music teachers and get the middle schools to be able to follow suit in the week of, I want to say the first week of May, which will still allow for between 4 and 6 weeks of music instruction with instruments in hand. for the rest of the school year. If that is successful and we see its possibility, we may also be able to extend that to the beginning string students in 5th grade at the elementary level, but that has yet to be decided.
All right, thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you. Next up is Jade with WRT.
Hi, yeah, I am Jade with WRT, and since Peter is here, maybe this is a good time to ask this question, but is there any plans to showcase, the work that the kids are doing, right? So graduation's a good end of the year, but, art shows and spring concerts, things to kind of show off. Is there any creative ways to address those during this time?
What we have been able to do so far, our arts teachers, especially at the middle and high school, have been really focused on allowing students to respond to their instructional prompts and to be able to share work electronically amongst one another within their individual groups. We're working through some of the details regarding, COPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, everything else, to ensure that we can handle this in a way that is compliant with all laws. But yeah, we're hoping to be able to actually have a broader sharing of artwork. There's a whole lot of discussion happening, and again, as our teachers that have been working in expressive learning areas that have usually been hands-on and very active learning in person, we're completely translating and reinterpreting all of our processes to something completely new. But that is something that a lot of interest has been expressed. So we're in the works, we're in discussion, nothing has been decided yet.
Cool. So then maybe another question along that line. Are there school events that are happening? Maybe, are student leaders taking it upon themselves to have assemblies or a makeshift prom? Are we seeing any examples of students, specifically in middle school and high school, step up to the plate in that way?
I can think of one example, and then maybe our chiefs can think of others. But we try to feature some of these innovative things that students are doing in the family newsletter. And so we have a family newsletter that comes out every Friday. And so also on our website. So I would direct families to be sure and keep up with that and take a look. One that just came out last week was the Black Student Union at, I can't remember which high school now, Mike, but they put together kind of a public service announcement for students on, I guess we call it netiquette, how to present yourself online and those kinds of things. So that was really well done. So I don't know if Mike and Tremaine and Carletta have other examples. I think there are plenty, and Peter too.
Yeah, our schools BSUs have definitely stepped up. What Jane was just talking about was East High School's BSUs speaking about just the art of being kind, and how social media can make it much easier not to be. We've had many clubs. Some of our athletes, our coaches, have been putting workouts out to students for the physicality of what's going on. So we're trying to try these different events. I know that we're in the midst of right now missing proms. There has been little interest of virtual proms from our students right now, and that's understandable. But we're trying these different events right now via, Zoom, but just not a lot going on with that.
Peter, did you have something to add to that?
The only thing that I would add would be there was discussion, and we're currently in the process of figuring out the details to actually engage in a spring play production, a theatrical production. Our fantastic director at Memorial High School had an idea for a play that is set actually, I believe, in bunker in 1950s middle America, basically a bomb shelter. And so all of the students would still be contributing virtually via their individual sort of Zoom feeds. But besides that possibility, there haven't been any gatherings or concerts beyond what students and teachers may be able to contribute in music instruction. But because most of our instruction is asynchronous, there haven't been the opportunities to actually contribute to an assembly of any sort, no.
We've seen lots of examples of within the virtual classrooms, students and parents and teachers creating little videos and, being very creative on ways that they're exploring lessons. Yeah.
Yeah, those virtual videos that have been really popular online, those involve individual recordings that are done to a click track or something that keeps people synchronized, and then all of the videos are actually assembled after the fact. So those don't happen live. They are fantastic. A couple of teachers have looked into creating some, but it's a great effect, and I think some teachers want to do it. It's a lot of work on the back end production. Yep.
Perfect example of bringing in new skills, right?
Absolutely.
Anybody else have anything else to add to that?
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, can I just clarify that is the calendar staying the same for the rest of the year? So if there's like a teacher development day, is that still a teacher development day and kids don't have school?
We're making some adjustments to the calendar based on sort of information that we get on a fairly frequent basis that may change. And as such, we have made an adjustment to Professional Development Day because we needed to have a little more time now that we know we're going to be spending more time in virtual learning. We wanted the teachers and students to have a little more time to ascertain exactly what they wanted and needed to work more on. And as Tremaine said, whatever we do with professional development is going to be very collaborative. Teachers working in teams, learning from each other, listening to student feedback, and really trying to make some adaptations on what they've heard. Anything anybody else wants to add?
Is there a place to find that updated or the rolling calendar?
There will be. It's probably not up yet, but as we did make some changes already this year, and as we've made the changes, we put them on the main website where the calendar is. So once we finally land on what we'll be doing with this, we'll put it on the main calendar.
Is last day of school still the same?
Last day of school, we've not had any more discussions about that. So I would say that at this point, we're thinking the last day of school is the same.
Those were all my questions, unless someone had anything else to add.
All right, thank you, Jade. Next will be Michelle with NBC 15.
Hi, so my first question is, has the district made a decision yet on how to go about commencement?
Still under discussion. I'll let Mike take over, but our individual schools have typically planned their own graduation ceremonies. So we're kind of going down that road again, and we've done some thinking on that. Mike?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's been on many of our minds for the last several weeks. Unfortunately, when we were notified that the Cole Center is no longer an option, as well as thinking about safety and welfare of all our students, our staff, and our community, the decision was made that we were not going to have in-person graduation. Over the last week and a half to 2 weeks, we've been meeting with each schools, and through that, the schools have been reaching out to students and are going to continue to reach out to student groups to talk about alternatives. The beautiful thing about Madison is our partners have reached out and are trying to come up with ways in which we can still make this a special day. I think about the outrage we had when we decided to send people out to vote as opposed to do absentee voting, and the danger we put all these people in. We as a district cannot be part of placing people in danger of putting everybody in one place, even to celebrate such an amazing event such as graduating. So we're still working through it. We want to make sure that everything is as special as possible for our students, but we need to keep the end goal of keeping everybody safe and healthy.
Yes, thank you. My next question is for John Harper. Hi, John. So I spoke with a parent of a student with autism, and the parent talks about how she has taken on this special ed assistant teacher type of role, and to help her daughter with the hands-on activities that teachers via Zoom cannot do. And so how prevalent is it for parents to be unable to fill this role? So how many families would you say this affects? And for those families, what's being done?
Boy, that's a great question, Michelle. I don't think I have a precise percentage that I can give you. I can share that each of our special education and related services personnel have reviewed every student IEP or individualized education program and has created a document that is essentially the services that we're able to provide during this closure period, as well as the services that really can only be delivered in a face-to-face manner. And after creating these written documents, our staff have then communicated with families to walk through the new services during this closure period. Our anticipation was that this would come up and that there would be a process whereby parents, caregivers, and staff communicate and say, this is working, this is not working, I think we need to make an adjustment here. Can we do something different? So our staff are creating, say, videos. We're providing a different online electronic curriculum. We've created a process where case managers or special ed teachers are creating instructional materials, sending that job to our print shop, which then mailed directly to the family or to the student. And in some cases, yes, parents are a part of the instructional arrangement along with a staff person, be that a special ed teacher, a related services person, OT, PT, speech, and or an educational assistant. So yes, we're realizing that in some cases it's the instruction is a bit more on the parent and caregiver, and we're working as collaboratively as we can, given the parameters here, to make the learning opportunities as engaging and as meaningful as possible. So I'll pause there and then I'll wait for if you have a follow-up.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so you would say there are families who, for whatever reason, maybe it's a day job, whatever reason, they cannot be present as the roles for being next to their students are there?
Yes, I'm listening.
No, yes, that was the question. So you would confirm that, you can confirm that there are families, parents that for whatever reason cannot be beside their child.
Well, yes, I mean, there are families. I mean, I can say that I'm one where I am working during the day and that my instruction with my own kids takes place in the afternoons, in the evening. So we very much anticipate that, given the sort of the benefits of online instruction, is that there's greater flexibility as to when it takes place. So yes, there may be some limitations during the day, but that doesn't foreclose any opportunities to engage in learning activities, on weekends and in the afternoons or early mornings, or sort of outside of the traditional school day. Yes, and I would say that we're trying to problem solve each of these individually, because there's not a one size fits all answer here. And our staff are so committed to working with every family to really engage every student, given the unprecedented circumstances here.
Yeah, thank you. And one last thing is, can you give me some examples of what works and what doesn't work? with, I mean, there are so many different cases, but, you know, just given this platform, Zoom, which is, you know, what everybody has to deal with right now, what is a function of Zoom that makes virtual learning possible, and if not just more than possible, good, even effective?
Well, I would say that just from my own personal experience, and that my own kids have greatly valued seeing their teacher, seeing their classmates, and engaging in sort of group-related learning activities when we're engaging in like synchronous opportunities where multiple students, the whole class is participating. So there's the social component, and then of course there's the academic component. It's a way for groups to continue to learn together on a similar topic. And I would say what is working is when we have special education teachers collaborating with their regular education teaching partner, creating individualized or lessons that are using accommodations or modifications for particular students, and then having the special ed teacher follow up very individually with that student, perhaps in a one-on-one setting with the parent there if that's needed, and really working through the learning process with them. That's been highly successful. And I would say also what's been really successful is that when we see teacher team or instructional teams coming together, I'm seeing more and more of our educators collaborating across school boundaries, so to speak, virtually to say, hey, this is really working well here, you should try this, or hey, I heard you're using that process or that lesson, can I use an adaptation of that, and I want to try that in my school. So we're seeing information shared among instructional teams across schools to, I think, much higher levels than we've ever seen before, all for the purpose of engaging our students with, you know, difficult learning circumstances.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. Next will be Savannah with Charter.
Hello there, everybody. So last time we chatted, we talked about a bunch of Chromebooks that were being sent to students. Can someone kind of detail the Wi-Fi expansion plans that were kind of mentioned in a blip a little earlier?
I'm going to call on Chad or TJ to do that. I think it's Chad.
Hello, yeah, Jane did mention that, I think, or Gloria did in her opening comments. So yeah, we were aware that getting devices in the hands of students was really just the first phase in making sure students had access to our teaching staff. So we are currently working on a purchase of a decent quantity of hotspots, and hopefully have that through the board process and on the way to Madison schools as early as the next couple of weeks. We'll have to work on a plan to identify students that still have a need for internet access as part of this process, but we believe hotspots will ensure having the possibility of getting most of, if not all of our students actually connected with a reliable and steady internet stream. We plan on using our social work staff, our LMTS staff, our guidance staff, other support staff to work with families to identify those that actually still have that internet need. My team with technical services is also working on the possibility of turning some of our sites into free hotspot zones, where we would allow families to drive into, let's say, a parking lot and access the internet with, sitting in a car and get on their Chromebook and have access there. And get, obviously then interact with staff, download updated assignments and so forth. And we're continuing to have ongoing dialogue with the city regarding a more stable solution moving forward to connect all of the students and families that have access needs. This won't happen overnight, and that's why we move quickly on the hotspot solution.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can someone kind of expand upon the professional development for teachers? It sounds like some of it or most of it may be virtual learning specific. How could that help teachers and students going forward?
Well, it's definitely the world we're in right now, and having teachers certainly enhance their skills in virtual teaching, it seems like the logical place to go. And I'm going to let Tremaine step in here and talk about this a little bit more.
All right, thanks again for that question. It's really an opportunity to think very innovatively moving forward. As I mentioned before, we have such a tremendous staff that have adaptive skills, and as they're continuing to develop their skill sets and share this learning with their colleagues, we can really see this as a way to become even more innovative and engaging, whether we're virtually or within our buildings. So we're looking at the professional development not as like a one-stop just for virtual learning for this moment. We're looking at it as how we continue to enhance ourselves as educators and continue to provide engaging experiences for all of our children.
I think I would just also kind of refer to what John Harper was talking about. Our teachers are really naturally reaching out to each other to learn from each other, and we want to provide that in a way that makes it easier for them to do that and really give them some space and time to focus on that collaboration.
Last question for everybody. Can someone just tell me a little bit about kind of students' social and emotional health and how they've, how kind of being able to benefit, like we were talking about with being able to see someone or like face-to-face, aka through the computer, or have any sort of access to the social work staff, how that has impacted students and families' abilities to kind of cope and deal with this situation?
So I'm going to ask Jay to address that. And I think what we're doing too is really assessing that along the way. And that's one of the really good reasons to have teachers have some time to work with each other, is to really think about how, what the students are telling us that they need. So Jay, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, Savannah, great question. And I'll speak just a little bit to my own kids' experiences. And when we first opened virtual learning, they were like almost giddy about being able to see classmates and people that they maybe hadn't seen for a couple of weeks. And, especially for our middle and high school students, it's so important for them to be connected to one another. Being stuck at home, is obviously a challenge for them, but we can maintain some of those routines through virtual learning and through other connections so that they can still be together. And even though they're physically distant, we want our students to feel socially close. And your follow-up question about social workers, obviously incredibly strong relationships with their teachers, but our support staff also have those incredibly strong relationships, and especially for our students that we're not engaging with as much as we would like. It's our support staff that have those really strong relationships and are reaching out. And though it might be a phone call or a text, it's still that same kind of connection, providing that consistency and a routine in the absence of being able to all be together in the same building.
That's all for me. Thank you guys. These are great.
Thank you. Channel 27. Is anyone from 27? I see you on the list there. All right, we'll move on we have two reporters from the Simpson Street Free Press. We'll start with Chris.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Chris Cruz. I'm a reporter at Simpson Street Free Press and a student at West High School. It's week 3 of virtual learning, and I've noticed that the online learning I'm doing is less rigorous than the work I was doing in class. Considering this, are you at all worried that the coronavirus will make achievement gaps worse?
So we're constantly concerned with that, Chris, and that's a great question. I think our folks, we've all been working on that really hard. Again, it's another topic for our professional development, for our teachers to really think about when they hear from students that it feels less rigorous. I mean, we're trying to make this balance between not wanting to add additional stress to students and then really finding that spot that keeps them engaged, keeps them learning, but does not stress them overly too much. So we know there's a lot of other things going on in their lives right now. So I'm gonna see if Lisa or Jay or anybody else wants to add to that in terms of rigor, maybe Cindy, rigor of learning in the virtual space.
I'm happy to respond. I can start on that, Jane.
Okay. I see Cindy's there too, so.
There we go. I'll let Cindy chime in as well. And Chris, thank you for sharing your experiences that you're having. I think that we are hearing some of what you're saying. This is one of the reasons that we want to take a day to do some professional learning with teachers, to do some reflecting and adjusting. I think we're also hearing that some families and some students are having the opposite experience, that things feel like too much and they feel overwhelming. So we're trying to find that balance between what you're saying and what other students are saying. And this is why it's really important, as Tremaine and Mike and Carletra have said, that we are seeking feedback from our students who are experiencing virtual learning. Cindy, what would you add to that?
Sure, I would just add a few things. Hi, Chris. Thanks for that question. I think one of the things, in addition to what Lisa and Jane both said, is the balance of trying to figure out what rigor looks like when there's little to no direct instruction, since we're in an asynchronous environment and the teacher does not have the opportunity to do the same type of teaching and modeling that they would do when we're in a face-to-face environment. We're trying to tread lightly on how we are impacting students with the independent learning that is being required of them right now. I think when we get more feedback from our students and families to hear how their experiences are, we will use that in our upcoming professional development to revise. And the last thing I would say is, and I've said this before, we are in kind of the last stretch of this school year. And so we really have also asked teachers to focus on what is absolutely essential that students need to know and be able to do to kind of close out the school year. And so in some ways you may see less amounts of work because of the focus on the few things that are essential for students to close out the year, while at the same time balancing that we know some students still have not received internet access, and we want to make sure that we are going slow so that we are ensuring that all of our students are able to receive the content. We've been thinking a lot about that equity issue.
Thank you, Cindy. Mike, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing on there. Chris, I appreciate your question because it's something I myself have a junior, sophomore, and 8th grader. And I'm going to be honest with you, Chris, I so much more appreciate my children's teachers of their ability to differentiate and to support not only my children, but all the students in their class. And I think about how we're trying to build this as we're flying, and we have teachers that move to virtual learning, and they might see up to 100, 120 students in that day. The dip right now from you mentioned rigor. You've noticed it's lower than might have been when you were in the building. We've been in virtual learning for 2 weeks, and we also have to remember that our staff, our teachers are going through the same possible trauma-filled days that the entire community is. So one, I ask for a little grace. We will get stronger and we'll get better. But two, at this point right now, everybody is working as hard as possible to make sure that we can challenge and support all students every day.
Thank you, Mike. Tremaine?
I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose the opportunity to the last part of Chris's question, which was so important. It was specific to ensuring that we do not expand in the achievement gap. And I really wanted to make sure that is articulated. That is our highest priority, to maintain and actually be more progressive in our work on closing any opportunity gaps that exist that cause disproportionality. So to your point, Chris, that's so important that you're lifting it up and calling it out. And it is our priority, not only just within the professional development that we're doing because racial equity will be a through line through all of our PD. It continues to be at the forefront of the work that we're continuing to do in collaboration across our organization to make sure that the gaps don't expand, and actually we continue to work heavily to close any gaps in opportunity that currently exist.
Thank you for lifting that up, Tremaine.
Yeah, thank you. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And then lastly, is it Joseph with this Sisseton Street Free Press? Are you there? All right, I think.
Yeah, I'm from
Okay.
Sisseton Street Press. My question was already answered.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from reporters who are in the room? All right. That shall wrap it up. Jane?
Well, thank you all again for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again in this format and sharing information with you. Thank you for your support of our school community and our students. We really appreciate it. Gloria, do you have anything? Unmute. Yep, you muted back.
I don't. Thank you, Jane. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, great. All right, have a good afternoon, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.